Yesterday, while scrolling through my Facebook feed, a friend of mine, Chris, shared a photo that he had sketched. It portrayed a man and was simply captioned, "Ever seen him?" The photo had several likes and one comment from Sarah, a mutual friend of ours. Sarah's reply read, "You know, it's the strangest thing. I feel as if I've seen him a million times and as though he frequents my life. Yet I don't know his name. Who is this?" I'll admit I spent a considerable amount of time looking at the photo and racking my brain, trying to figure out whether or not I had ever encountered the person in question. I was somewhat unnerved because he did look familiar. I planned to inquire as to why Chris had asked and had even gone to the trouble of drawing a sketch. I mean, I'd never seen him pick up a sketch pad in his life. Looking at the clock though, I realized that if I didn't hurry I would surely be late for work. I quickly exited my programs and shut down my PC. I braced myself for the 12-hour shift of tedious factory labor that awaited me. After working my hands to the bone, the last thing I want to do is type on the computer. Thank God I have tomorrow off, I remember thinking. I'm going to sleep till mid-afternoon. At this point, I had completely forgotten about Chris's sketch of the mystery man. Starved and exhausted, I managed to scrape up the last bit of energy I had and make myself a feast. A feeling of complete satisfaction overcame me after indulging in the last bite my body could handle. I realized I could barely stand up, let alone do the dishes. I painstakingly made my way up the stairs and to my bedroom where sleep was sure to set in soon. I must have been lying there only 2 or 3 minutes when it happened. As I felt myself drift off, I got that falling sensation. You know the one, it's like you jump off a cliff and milliseconds before hitting the ground you radically snap out of dream state. Upon waking up in this abrupt fashion, I took a deep breath in an attempt to reduce my heart rate to a more regular level. As the pace slowed, I could hear what sounded like rustling in the kitchen. Adrenaline jolted through my body almost immediately. I got out of bed, approached the door to my bedroom, which I had left slightly ajar, and removed the marble doorstop to use as a makeshift weapon in the event that I needed one. I made my way quietly downstairs. I peeked my head around the corner to see a man staring right back at me, easily recognized as the man from the drawing. It was as if looking into his eyes calmed me down almost instantaneously. I find it hard to articulate the feeling. Perhaps hypnosis would do it the most justice? I found myself in the middle of the doorway, staring straight into his dark, expressionless eyes for what felt like hours. I took a step forward, and to my horror, I noticed my surroundings were beginning to change drastically. The walls started bleeding a thick, gory mess onto the floor, and the room began emitting a heinous odor. Gravity seemed to be warped at this point. The blood that had originated on the floor began to drip upwards and pooled in the ceiling. Eventually, it drained through the southern corner of the ceiling in a cyclonic fashion. When I looked around afterwards, it had disappeared. I realized something was definitely wrong, but I still couldn't shake the calming effect his eyes had on me. My setting had morphed to that of what seemed to be a room within a 16th century castle or fortress. Limestone walls and marble floors lined the massive cathedral, with torches on each pillar. In this new setting, a large oak table lay between this man and I. We stood at opposite ends. Hooded tenants began to chant quietly as if they were beginning a ceremony, lining the table on either side of us. I don't know how long it took for me to realize that my eyes were the only part of my body I had any control over. I couldn't move a muscle. However, once this terrifying fact came to my attention, it was the only thought that filled my mind. That is, until he moved. For the first time since our bizarre introduction, this man moved. That's when fear and panic set in. Although I remained motionless, I could feel my heart pumping recklessly in my chest. My ears felt as if microscopic percussionists were beating my eardrum with all the might they could summon, as the chanting by the seemingly demonic audience began to fade. Although I couldn't speak, I know that my eyes expressed the overwhelming terror that filled my soul in that moment. The moment I saw this man remove a long blade from its sheath. He took one slow step after the other, and I remember the echo of each step reaching the distant corners of the large cathedral. As he passed the table and escaped my line of vision, I felt a tear roll down my cheek. I knew this was the end. The sound of his footsteps grew closer and closer, and the echoes grew louder and more prominent until they came to an abrupt stop directly behind me. I could feel his hot breath moisten the back of my neck. He gripped my shoulder as he pressed the cold blade against my jugular. Without hesitation, in one graceful, almost majestic movement, he severed my throat from ear to ear. I awoke breathless in a pool of sweat. After taking a few moments to allow my heart rate to slow, I realized that my number one priority was now to find out who or what this man was. I decided to start looking in the most obvious place, the internet. My mind was considering many different options at this point, but I figured that my best bet would be to see if Chris was online so I could try to have a conversation with him on the topic. I was still shaken in my core, even in my waking life. I found myself beginning to look around to see if I was being followed, to see if this man was in my house watching me. The dream felt so real, and I could remember every aspect of it as if I had been completely lucid. As I logged onto Facebook, Chris's sketch was the first thing to come up. The photo now had over 20 comments. Everyone but Sarah's calling bullshit. Chris ended the thread with this comment. I am not fucking lying. I saw him on a flyer stapled to a telephone pole in February when I was on vacation in Mexico. I don't speak Spanish, so I had no idea what the captions were. I ended up staring at the picture for like 5 minutes while waiting for my girlfriend to finish getting whatever she was buying in the gift shop. Go to thisman.org and do the research yourself. He has been harassing my dreams for months now. I can't fucking take it. This site alone doesn't even begin to cover how fucked up he is. Some say if you stare at the picture long enough, eventually he'll begin to stare back. Forever. It keeps getting worse. I feel so fucking helpless. Forget I ever posted this picture. Sorry guys, I'm gonna go try to sleep. I can't keep my eyelids open. The timestamp read 2:21 a.m. Perplexed, I clicked on Chris's picture in an effort to bring me to his timeline. He posted 2 status updates after the sketch he drew. The first, this morning at 11:01 a.m. was, I've tried everything. I can't escape this man. You don't understand the horrors. You don't know what he makes me see. 10 minutes later, the last thing Chris ever posted was this. I really hope he can't follow me into the abyss.